to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying wren, fast vertical stems, and professors from Penn watching eagles eating prey like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia, Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I don't call it the off season. I call it the non-playing season.
Is that what you say when people, normies ask you about what you do in the off season? You say it's not the off season, it's the non-playing season.
I don't correct them, but I'll call it the non-playing season.
Okay.
I'll feel like there's the playing season.
The NPO.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Tuesday night at about 9:09 p.m. on day 2 of tampering the Eagles, bringing back James Bradberry, bringing in Rashad Penny, bringing back Boston Scott. We'll get to all of that, all the other moves that happened around the league today that are Eagles relevant, including the departure of Kaiser White. I am Bo, that is Zach, and we must start this episode by wishing a very happy birthday to our superstar producer, Marissa Dunn. Please, Zach, will you and the chat join me in singing
Oh, no.
happy birthday to Marissa?
Sure.
And a 3, and a 2, and a 1. Happy birthday. You're not going to join me?
I'm singing. Happy birthday
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Marissa. Happy birthday to you.
I don't know what was better. Zach not singing.
I should have gone full
I
Marilyn
sang.
Monroe. That's what I should have done.
Marissa, I'm so excited for you. This is your final birthday before kids. And
I
so-
know, it's crazy. Yeah, 29. So my final birthday in my 20s and
20-something.
final before a baby. So yeah, it was a great day and happy to cap it off with a free agency pod and spend time with you guys in the sickos. Nothing better. You got a birthday coming up too, Zach, right?
I do, but tonight's focus is on you. And
What are you, 20-something again, Zach?
I feel 20-something, right?
That's
But-
good.
Do you?
No, I want to say we gave. This
When's
is
your
how
birthday?
March 22nd. This is how the same day as Sean Bradley. So you know where all the height went.
Which
right?
Sean Bradley? Oh,
The 7'6" one.
okay.
So I
So
just want. I mean, we can,
So just for the people trying to guess your passwords, 32286 is right.
So I have to change my phone password now.
Let's change it to Pauline.
No, so I want to give Marissa a shout out here. We can give her a shout out for so many different reasons, but this shows how loyal she is to her job and her audience.
She's no birthday uncle.
That we gave her the out. We said to her, Bo and I can do this pod.
No.
Go enjoy it. And she said she wants to do this podcast tonight. So credit to Marissa every night, but especially tonight. I'll say this. I referred to Marissa. I was talking to someone about her the other day, and I said she's
Creepy.
I said she's my boss. She's like my audio boss.
Not
So
your boss.
yeah, she's my producer. So I said
Audio boss is another word for voice in your head.
so I said like I could talk to my producer, to see if she can do such and such thing. Yeah, so credit to Marissa.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it, but I'm more than happy to be here. I wish I was the voice in your head, Zach, and I could tell you to get some rest and maybe not work as hard, but we're still working on that.
Yeah, I'm always chasing. So speaking of always chasing, the Eagles are chasing the team they're trying to be next year.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bo, of the moves today?
Hold on. Marissa, what did you do for your birthday?
I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean,
Other than Michael just sitting down watching the 16 seed playing game.
oh man, he's ready. March Madness is in full swing over here. Before we started, he's yelling at the screen. No, it was a pretty simple birthday. Like a lot of people, I was attached to my phone and NFL Network watching all of the free agency stuff. Still no Rodgers news for my Jets podcast, so that was kind of frustrating.
Can't
but
wait.
Yeah, hopefully tomorrow we'll hear something. But yeah, we had dinner at home because we've been traveling a lot lately, so I did not really want to go out to dinner. And shout out to my wonderful mom because she made a lovely dinner and a nice gluten-free strawberry shortcake with whipped cream icing, homemade whipped cream icing, which was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, really good. Highly recommend making homemade whipped cream. I don't know how she did it though, so I can't really speak through it.
It's pretty easy. You get the cream and then you whip it.
I think it's like confectionery sugar and heavy cream, maybe. Or I don't think it's many ingredients, but she said the bowl had to be chilled. I didn't know she said that. But, very good. And yeah, so I a little bit, had a lot of sugar a little bit ago and ready for this pod, ready to talk about everything that went down today.
To
All right,
answer
Zach, go ahead with your
question.
question.
Wait, to answer Brent's question, Al, do you know the Eagles player with the same birthday as Marissa? The answer is Kenny Gainwell, who was in the news today, but this is Kenny Gainwell's birthday.
We should
And
change
Steph
the name
Curry.
to Marissa Produce Well.
Marissa, growing up, how many pie jokes did you get?
So I actually loved it. It was like a cool
Okay.
birthday on Pi Day because math class was always fun. And I wasn't really a math person, if you can tell by some of my addition and subtraction on this show. So everyone would get to bring in pies. We'd have like a pizza party. So I always liked that. And I know a lot of people say that's how they remember my birthday is pie. So yeah, I always enjoyed it. It's like
What was your best birthday party as a kid?
Good question. I had a lot. My mom was like epic with throwing birthday parties, but I did have one at Yankee Stadium. So I think that would probably take the cake, pun intended. We did like take the pie, pun intended. Yeah, I should have known better. We did like a tour of there wasn't a game, but we got to do like a tour of the stadium and go in the locker room. I brought like 15 girls to Yankee Stadium at age 12. And we went in the press box and had pizza and cake and things like that. So
that's great.
Yeah. That probably is one that stands out.
This is not my day. This is Marissa's
No,
day.
it's birthday conversation.
It's birthday conversation. What's the best birthday party you had as a kid? And Westchester,
medieval times.
That's a good one. I had that one at one time.
Medieval times.
Yeah. I actually want to go as an adult. Have you taken your kids there?
Not the kids yet.
Yeah, I mean they're a little young.
We once went to medieval times with my family and Rachel when we were early on in dating, like maybe like 2 years in or something like that. No, and maybe it was a little bit longer than that. And for some reason, my mom was under the impression that I was going to propose to Rachel at medieval times. Like, first of all, you think I'm gonna do that without telling you? And second of all, you think I'm gonna do that?
I've never been to medieval times. The only thing I know about it is the cable guy.
I love medieval
times. Okay.
Yeah, I used to love medieval times too, except I was like, a little pampered as a kid and didn't know how to eat like chicken off the bone.
Oh, that's good.
So my mom would have to when we went to medieval times, she'd have to like take it off for me. And that lasted until I was a little too old. But yeah, big fan. Zach, your favorite birthday?
Like favorite birthday party?
Yeah.
As a kid?
When he was about 12 years old, he was put to work. And
no, like when I had parties up until I was 9 years old. My 8th birthday party was my favorite. We my parents rented out like the court and the gym one day, at a local school, and split the kids. I split the teams up evenly. Like I was working throughout the week to come up with even teams, East versus West.
This does sound very Zach.
Yeah,
Okay,
and it was we just played basketball, the whole time, for an hour or so, and then had cake. But that was the coolest birthday party. And then
they cut you off for birthday parties at 9?
At 9, yeah.
Interesting.
9. Michael didn't have a lot of birthday parties growing up either. I did until I was in college, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had lots of birthday parties.
Yeah, we stopped at.
I guess when you got 14 kids.
Yeah,
Oh.
true.
But then, but no, I mean, we would have like a dinner at the house, but in terms of like inviting all the friends
Yeah.
over, yeah. But
That's
then,
how Michael was growing
yeah.
up.
Emily threw me a surprise party at Tacanelli's one time, and then also the famous. Well, it's not famous.
The famous
shouldn't use the term.
Pazuki.
When I had my 25th birthday, I was down covering spring training for the Star Ledger. And I covered a Yankees-Orioles game. I believe someone can look up. I believe it was a Yankees-Orioles game that day. And I'm driving back to my hotel in Tampa. And I stop at BJ's Brew House and I bring the Pazuki back. And the woman at the front desk asks if that's a Pazuki. And I offer it to her and she accepted it. And so
Unbelievable.
she had my birthday Pazuki.
If there's one story I
Do
think
they have
that
one of those in
describes-
Philadelphia?
No, they have one in Allentown. Because
Okay.
I was thinking about on the drive to or from
The Maxwells?
the Maxwells. I was thinking of stopping, but I don't
You
need a
should've.
Pazuki right now, so I'm trying to eat better.
My
Okay.
parents tell a story of like when I don't know exactly how old I was, probably like 6 years old, maybe. They had a birthday party at our apartment, and they decided to do like a puppet show, thinking that would really entertain everybody. And they like worked hard on this little routine, and then they finished the puppet show, and none of the kids were there. Like everybody had gotten up and walked away. Just
Oh, no.
total misread of the situation. But that's all right.
They
All
tried.
right, Zach. We're 12 minutes into the episode, and we haven't
Yeah,
talked
we haven't talked
about the
Eagles
free
yet.
agency. I know that's biting away at you. So, what was the question that you were going to pose about what has happened today?
Yeah, so for full disclosure, we did just have an email exchange that's going up about this, but I'm curious for our audience and to flesh it out here. A, are you surprised about Bradberry? B, are you surprised at how quickly they sorted out the backfield? And C, is this like the major part of this first week, or do you think this was just the beginning of it?
Good questions. Let's take them one at a time, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
On Bradberry, I mean, you and I did the Flu World Order 2 weeks ago, and we had him at 15 and 16, respectively. I had him at 15, so that's a point for me. But
you killed me on Boston Scott, by the way.
I did kill you on Boston Scott. I felt good about that one. But I mean, so relative to my expectations from 2 weeks ago, a big surprise. Once free agency started yesterday, and he was still on the board, and it kept going today, and he was still on the board, and knowing that the Slay situation is unsettled, it started to seem a little bit more likely. Now, Bradberry told both Josina Anderson and DFOP Josh Tolentino, who got the
good
scoop
work,
and
Josh.
talked
watching,
to
good work.
Bradberry today. Great work by Josh. That he passed up some slightly more lucrative offers elsewhere in order to come back to the Eagles. I think I mean, it's a very reasonable deal, right? 3 years for about under $13 million a year, with 20 guaranteed. And my guess is once we see the details, it's probably going to be a 2-year commitment. It's a very reasonable deal for a player of his caliber. It seems like the case where the Eagles probably had a number and he was willing to accept the number.
Mm-hmm.
So am I surprised? A little bit, but not blown away, having seen what happened over the past 48 hours. What do you think about Slay? Because my guess here is Slay's coming back too. And we're going to get a resolution probably one way or the other before tomorrow when the league year opens, because the Eagles are going to want to either open up the cap space with the restructure or trade him and get what they can, which is, it's a difference of about $7 million.
Yeah, great question. Because to show how the tofu was made, as a nod to Shield, we have a template that we need to fill out whenever there's a signing. When I say we, the reporters at The Athletic. And one of the questions in the template is how this affects their cap. And I was texting Bo for this one. I just kind of raised my hands. I don't know right now. I mean, Jake Rosenberg, Bryce Johnston, they have smart people in there who are figuring out their cap situation. And from my understanding of it, and I'll admit it's a relatively rudimentary understanding, relatively speaking. In order for them to have this type of money, they needed to restructure Lane's deal and restructure Slay's deal. Now, maybe they can just do one and then just have Slay on that deal, but then subsequent moves would be hard to fit.
It's weird that the Lane one hasn't been reported yet.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be something for bookkeeping that's done. So, in any event,
bookkeeping, one of the few words in the English language with back-to-back Ks.
What are the other words?
Actually, maybe it's the only one. It's bookkeep, like bookkeeping, but I think that might be the only. Is there one more? No. Go ahead.
So I don't know what this means for Slay. Clearly, the fact that, and we talked about it last night, they're willing to have life without him next year. If they did say
Stockkeeper.
That's a good one.
Sorry, Zach. Continue.
No, I appreciate that. I still think Slay's going to be back. I think that's the most sensible scenario, but Slay also has to look out for Slay, and he has to, if he can find a situation where he can make money going beyond this season, then he should do so. But I don't know where that's going to be. That's all I was saying. I still think the most likely outcome is that Slay restructures. Jackknife.
Zach Kiefer is very funny to me, but
oh, okay. I mean, that's the best writing one. I know that. But yeah, I still think the most likely outcome is Slay and Bradberry are the corners next year, and the Eagles have the best cornerback tandem in the NFL.
Well, I don't think that we can be so declarative about that.
Okay. I also, I mean, where I think this isn't Joe Banner in 1998. Like, players don't always fall off a cliff at age 30. I think we sometimes view 30 as like, once they hit 30, they're done. I wouldn't sign Slay to a 5-year deal, but if you say you can have Slay and Bradberry next season, I mean, well, actually, I take this back. The Dolphins are a better cornerback combination. I would rather have Ramsey and Howard than Slay and Bradberry. But Slay and Bradberry will be one of the best cornerback combinations in the NFL next year. I feel confident saying that. Gilmore and Diggs is another really good one. So there's, it's not the best, but it's up there among.
Well, listen, it's all about probability, right? And one of the biggest predictors of health is, have they been healthy? And both Darius Slay and James Bradberry have been very healthy. James Bradberry has missed.
We'll get to that with Rashad Penny, by the way.
Right. James Bradberry has missed 2 games in the past, I think, 5 years. Darius Slay has not missed a game for health reasons in his 3 years with the Eagles. He's missed games because the Eagles had games without consequence in weeks 17 and 18. But you can expect them theoretically to be healthy. It was the same thing with Malcolm Jenkins, right? But at some point, their play is going to deteriorate.
Sure, exactly.
It's why the Eagles are probably not giving Darius Slay another year on his contract. I don't think that it's ideal to have so much money wrapped into 2 30-year-old cornerbacks, 30 and 32.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, so then what do we disagree about?
I'm just saying, no, I say for next season. Like, I wouldn't extend Slay with big money right now. And I also don't think that it's ideal to extend Slay right now that you've extended Bradberry. But I think if you say you can restructure Slay's deal, push some of the money to the voidable years, okay? So then there will be a cap hit after next season. And you have Slay and Bradberry for next year. I think for the 2023 season, that's fine. It would surprise me if they both fell off the cliff in 2023.
I think it's fine. I think it's probably good relative to their options. It's not like, we don't know what Byron Murphy's deal is going to be yet.
Sure.
And so without knowing that, we can't really say like whether one deal is better than the other. and I don't know that they had a better solution. And it puts them in a good position to not have to reach for a corner in the draft. But the problem with it is you've now got all this money to, committed to corners, and cornerback is still a need, right? Like it's still a big
long term,
right?
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, not immediate. Yes, correct.
And so it's not perfect. I'm not saying that I would have done it differently. It's just, this is the situation that they're in. I guess we'll see what happens with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Maybe they chose Bradberry over Gardner-Johnson, just where to allocate their money. But
that would surprise me.
Well, maybe they chose Bradberry at this number versus
exactly
at a different number, right?
Exactly.
I'm not throwing a parade for this. I think it's solid business, but it's not like a heist.
Oh, I don't think it's a heist. I didn't think Bradberry was going to come back for the reason we mentioned. I didn't think they'd pay 2 cornerbacks at this age. Short of Hargrave coming back, and we discussed last night, $21 million seemed prohibitive. I don't know what Gardner-Johnson's going to sign for. It would surprise me if Gardner-Johnson signed with the Eagles at this point, but never say never, and they have worked things out with the cap. That this is a fair contract for Bradberry. And if you look at this independent of Slay, if you say Slay's on the books next year, okay, we'll have, the Eagles will have Slay next year and then not thereafter. And Bradberry is a 2-year bridge, and that you're talking about the 25 roster and 26 roster. You can start planning ahead now. You don't have to force the number 10 pick or force the number 30 pick. You can draft the best player there who might well be a cornerback, and you develop him the same way. Look, Lito and Sheldon, the audience would know this better than me. I should know this, and in a few months I'll probably know this well, is like what age was Troy Vincent and what age was Bobby Taylor when the Eagles drafted Lito and Sheldon? Because I imagine this is something we'll write around draft time.
Well, let's find out.
Because Vincent and Bobby Taylor gave them a good year. Like the Eagles went to the Super Bowl that year with those two guys, and then they moved on and they went to Lito and Sheldon, right? They had that planning ahead.
Troy Vincent was 32.
Okay.
Bobby Taylor was 29.
Yeah. So if you have that type of year from Bradberry and Slay, and then you can transition. What am I see Jason saying wrong here. What am I wrong here? Did they play one more year?
Don't overreact to the chat, mid pod.
Well, there are customers, right? If
well, yeah, but you're in the middle of talking. You don't have to interrupt yourself.
If we have a pizza, if this is a pizza restaurant and we're serving pizza and someone's in the middle of their bite and they say this isn't a good bite.
Yeah, but you also have, but Zach, this is a very small portion of the people eating the pizza. The majority of the people eating the pizza are listening
at home. Okay,
right?
Fair enough.
And so now they're distracted by.
Yes. Well, so Jason, that's exactly what I said. Lito and Sheldon were not the starters for the Super Bowl year, were they? Anyways, they
do you
might
want
as well.
Do you want to start a new podcast with Jason?
So in any event, they had, even if it was the year before, they had a productive year with Bobby Taylor and with and with Troy Vincent, and then they transitioned to Lito Shepherd and to Sheldon Brown. And if that's the way this goes, then that would be a good outcome. My point is they don't need the force cornerback for next year. They can get by very well with the two guys they have next year.
Okay, that's fair.
That's
now because you've stopped talking, surprised. I will address the Mount Joy comment in the chat because I am wearing my Mount Joy t-shirt. And he asks, and I think this is Matt. He asks, "What do you think about Jeffrey stealing Jeffrey Simmons?" Zach, we talked about guys coming up on their end of their rookie deals. What would you think about a Jeffrey Simmons trade?
Well, I think that'd be a great trade. Right. I mean, I would trade.
Don't you want to know the terms first?
I would trade one of the first rounders right now. I mean, maybe I would trade 30. I would trade 30 for Jeffrey Simmons right now. I don't know if that would do it. I might even trade 10, but that's that's expensive.
Don't you think Ran Carthon would get fired for giving the
Doing
Titans
it
his
again,
next best
exactly.
player, or giving the Eagles his next best player?
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm saying I don't think it's going to happen.
That would be interesting. Okay, so Bradberry, state of the secondary. You feel good about things? Do you feel like this? You feel like this makes it less likely that Gardner-Johnson comes back?
From a financial perspective, that would surprise me. Yes.
Okay. If we were doing grades for the James Bradberry re-sign, what would you give it?
On what scale? We never do A to F.
Yeah, why are we not doing grades?
Because we're doing like 3 other pieces. We've become big.
I went back to look at our Javon Hargrave grades. We actually gave it regular grades.
Like A through F?
Yeah.
I mean, that was right at the beginning of the pandemic. We probably
maybe that's why we decided it would be uncouth to do nonsensical grades.
That was literally the first week of the pandemic. Free agency was the only thing in sports going on that week, actually.
And of course, by the way, I gave it the best grade, so history shines on me.
Okay, what'd you give the Slay trade? Out of curiosity.
I think the best grade I've written was the Joe Flacco trade, or signing, which I stand by. Slay, I mean, listen, we can talk about Slay another time.
So I don't think they keep Gardner-Johnson at this point, but crazier things have happened, and they need to figure out the safety situation.
I'm really curious what he's going to sign for, because I don't like. I mean, who knows what he's asking for? But there are safety is one of the few positions that has not been totally picked over in free agency yet. There are still plenty of guys available, and we'll get to this. But like defensive tackle, where the Eagles need to do something, is going really fast. There are not a lot of guys still out there. Linebacker, similarly, not a lot of guys still out there. But safety, there are plenty of like the top tier of those guys, or I guess not the top tier, but the second tier, who are still available.
Although usually, and I say this late in the free agency technically hasn't even started yet. But
it's so silly.
Unless you were Aaron Rodgers, usually if you haven't signed a deal now, it's because you haven't gotten the number that you want yet. It's not because you were sitting there choosing between 5 teams and like there's all these offers, and it's usually you are either have to accept the number that's there among multiple teams offering it to you, or you're waiting for a team to come up to your price because that team is working on something else, and they say, well, if this doesn't happen, then that happens. Like, for instance, Javon Hargrave might not have been an Eagle the past 3 years if Byron Jones signs, right? Javon Hargrave was their pivot when they didn't get Byron Jones.
Right. Okay. All right, Marissa, are we on a 1 break or 2 breaker?
Just 1.
Okay. Let's go to break.
And I want to make a comment to any audio listeners that have heard a Chiefs Super Bowl ad in the audio version. Those are automated. I don't put those in. Those are selected by the site that we upload the podcast to. So very sorry if that's been very depressing when you're listening to this podcast and all of a sudden you hear an ad for the Chiefs Super Bowl commemorative. I don't know what it is, but yeah, so that's not really us doing that. And I'll try and change it, but we love all our sponsors. So
yes, we do.
Yes. We'll be back after this.
We love all of our current sponsors.
Yes, our current sponsors.
And future ones.
Yes.
And future ones. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The past.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, we'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll talk Rashad Penny, Boston Scott, and everything else that happened today.
Okay.
We all want to look good and be comfortable, but finding that combination can be a challenge. The clothes are too tight. They're not your size. They don't look right. Well, let me tell you about Roan, because I recently put in a new order. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, as my wife will quickly tell me, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Roan's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Roan helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Roan commuter collection. Roan's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the product. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll smell fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I personally like the versatility. It works for a work event, a date night, or just hanging around at home. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/BWF and use promo code BWF to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/BWF and use code BWF. It's time to find your corner office comfort.
All right, back on Birds with Friends.
Real quick,
Move
during
now.
the break,
What?
there was news that I just saw. David Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? He's going
Is it David Montgomery or Montgomery David?
David Montgomery. Not to be confused with Dave Montgomery, the former president of the Phillies and a nice man. David Montgomery. What? What?
I like that you had to throw in the nice man. You know, I mean, how many times did you meet the old Dave Montgomery? Everybody says he was a nice man, but how do you know?
I've met him multiple times. I sat down in his office.
Okay.
Bo, I have written a thing or two in the city for the.
Tell him, Zach.
Yeah, I sat with him in his office in Clearwater. We talked Penn Charter. We had a very nice conversation. So David Montgomery signed he signed with the Detroit Lions, and I bring this up. I know we're about to talk running backs, but
seems like a crazy deal.
Yeah.
3 years, $18 million, 11 guaranteed. So that could A, affect Miles Sanders' market, but B, there had been some talk leading into the draft that maybe that was a potential Bijan Robinson team. I assume that's not the case now. And C, the Eagles already, well, we'll get to what they did in their backfield. But man, if there's a team that can trade for DeAndre Swift, I would trade for DeAndre Swift because I think that's a guy who's going to bust out.
But that's just you being anchored to the draft thing, as you've admitted.
To the draft pedigree? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had an awesome game against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Did he not? And I watched him in high school at St. Joe's Prep and watched him in college at Georgia. So
I think that David Montgomery deal strikes me as wild, and we'll see how real those numbers are. And I'm curious to see where Miles Sanders goes. But let's get into it now, because the Eagles signed Rashad Penny to a 1-year deal worth, according to NFL Network, $1.35 million, with $600,000 guaranteed, and could get up to a little bit over $2 million. Penny, if you take him at his best, is the best running back that was on the market. He's got 6.2 yards per carry over the past 2 seasons. He's been awesome after contact. The problem, of course, is that he's never healthy. He has had over 100 carries in the season once. That was in 2021, and is coming off a broken fibula in October. So this is like a nice, cheap, high upside swing for the Eagles, but I think they are going in here with eyes wide open about the likelihood that they're going to get a full season out of Rashad Penny.
well said. This is someone who, when he's on the field, is electric. It's what you're looking for. I mean, over 5 yards per carry in his career. Past 2 years, over 6 yards per carry. I put a stat up there that Nick Sirianni believes in it. Whoa.
What was that? Is an alien just land in your house?
No, that's wind.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That was very wild.
Sounded like a spaceship or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopes. I will order Marissa a Pazuki. That was, by the way, that was very wild. I thought my kids were going to run in here any minute.
Jeez.
So,
Is the roof still on in your house?
I sure hope so. Guess we'll find out in a minute.
Zach Berman, take us to your leader. You call up Chip Kelly.
So So
Josh says it was the Pizookie delivery guy.
hope there's not trees that get knocked down. So let's get back to what I was saying. That Nick Sirianni believes in explosive plays, right? The way he categorizes it is 10 plus yards is a 10 plus yard rush. In the past 2 seasons, Rashad Penny's rate of 10 plus yards is the second highest of any running back with at least 100 carries. The only one higher is Nick Chubb, who benefits from a great offensive line in Cleveland, right? So that was a Michael Dunn.
We get it. Yeah.
You didn't
Again, as you and I have texted about, as a fan of comedy, you really are aware that the best way to get a joke over is to explain it right away.
You didn't sell it. I
smiled.
Okay. So and then in his career, he's only had 6 games. He's only had 6 games with at least 15 carries. He's topped 100 yards in 5 of those games. All right, that's incredible, but it shows you how seldom he carries the ball at a high rate. So, yeah, I think you put it well. The Eagles know why they're getting him on the cheap. It's a lottery ticket that if it pays off, good for him and good for Penny.
You asked about this at the start, and we can address it now. I am fascinated that the Eagles were so aggressive here about signing Penny and re-signing Boston Scott so early before the market has set itself, because there are so many guys who are available who are, like solid running backs. And I think they made the conscious decision to move on from Miles Sanders. We can get to sort of the Sanders in Philadelphia eulogy if you want, but I think in Penny they were aggressive because they see the highest upside with him of the guys on the market, and I think that makes sense, especially cost wise. The Boston Scott thing is odd, and it's especially odd because they could have waited to see if like all of a sudden Damian Harris was available for $1 million next week. But I think I view it as intentionality about the post-contract Jalen Hurts plan. And by that, I mean, I think in Rashad Penny, they have a guy who is a little bit more reliable between the tackles than Miles Sanders was. I think that this is the perfect short-term Band-Aid. The position is fine to the degree that you don't need to reach for a running back in the draft. But if one presents itself at the top of your board, there's nothing here to prevent you from taking one of those guys. And I think they're going to make something of an investment in the interest of keeping Jalen Hurts healthy long-term once they have signed him to a long-term deal, just taking the reins off a little bit in asking so much of him in short yardage, and not from a quarterback sneak standpoint, because, theoretically those don't take too much out of his body. But, if he's going to stay healthy for the long term, which he has not done down the stretch each of the past 2 seasons, one way that they can hope to improve that is to ask him to run just a little bit less. You don't want to take away his superpower, but I think that expecting more from that position than they got from Miles Sanders is something that's on their mind.
Yeah, I think you might be reading into it a little too much. Maybe you are right, but I think Rashad Penny was a promising back at a cheap price, and it's not because of Jalen Hurts. I think the logic is sound, but I don't think that was the impetus for this move. I think it was a good swing at a cheap price that was going to be much less expensive than Miles Sanders. And it's hard to get this type of talent and production and potential, or this type of talent and upside rather, at, $2 million a year, right? The Boston Scott signing, I didn't quite understand. And that's not a knock on Boston. Nice guy, decent player for you. Last year they signed Boston, I think March 19th or March 18th. That was a week plus in the free agency. Did he do so much in the past year that there will be more of a priority now? I don't know. And honestly, were you willing to risk Boston Scott signing elsewhere before the draft? I misread what the Eagles were going to do at running back. I thought what the Eagles would do was what they did in 2017, that they would go into the draft, see how the draft went, And then you can always find backs after the draft. In 17, they found LeGarrette Blount, right? The draft didn't go as they wanted. They got Pumphrey in the 4th round instead of, instead of Cook in the 2nd round, and they had to regroup. I thought that's what they would do here. It surprised me that they basically put a 3-man backfield together today, joined with Gainwell. That's why the Scott move caught me off guard. Good for Boston Scott, because he's someone who, like, he does everything you ask. He's a good guy in the locker room. He's a good guy to have. It's always good to see guys get paid. It just, that move did surprise me.
Just to bookkeep, Flu World Order. Jason Kelsey back. We both had him at 1. Brandon Graham back. I had him at 2. You had him at 3. So a point advantage for me. Although if Quez Watkins is on the week 1 roster, that'll be a wash. Boston Scott, I had at 5. You had at 10. Nice little bump for your boy. And James Bradberry, as we said before, I had at 15. You had at 16. The Zach Pascal one is the one that's going to get you back in the heat here. You've got him at 6. I've got him at 12. That's the one we're really rooting against. All the minions.
Yeah, like, I would have more of an urgency and the game aside, Flu World Order aside, I would have more of an urgency to re-sign Zach Pascal than sign Boston Scott. I would rather have a 4th receiver locked down right now than a 3rd running back. But
yeah, but I think I'm sure that Boston Scott, his contract includes like very little guaranteed money. They can cut him if they need to.
Now, if that happens, you don't get the point, right?
No, yes, you do.
I thought for a returning player, he has to be on the.
No. An unrestricted free agent counts if they are back on the roster at any point.
Okay.
So them being re-signed counts. It's only the guys who are trade possibilities that they have to be on the week 1 roster.
Gotcha. Well, that won't keep me up at night regardless. So
I don't believe you.
Flu World Order doesn't. Other things do. Flu World Order does not.
Okay. Anything else that we should discuss from the, well, I guess we should say on Rashad Penny, just in terms of like fit in the backfield, this is not a player who is going to contribute as a receiver in the running game. He's never had more than 9 catches in a season. And so the fit with Kenny Gainwell is a little bit nice and complimentary. He is supposedly solid in pass protection and better than the Eagles have had in recent years. I mean, they're going to be rotating snaps there anyway, but I still expect that there's going to be one other person added here, either in the draft or like right after.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still not ruling out a draft pick in the top 100 on a back.
Yeah, I think that's very, very reasonable.
This also, I think this combination really lends well to your creativity.
What's that?
I think you can come up with a good nickname. I've seen Penny and Kenny, but there's got to be a good pun with a
Penny Lane
or a penny gaining well or something of that nature. Gains on the penny. I don't know. You're someone who can think of a good.
Well, Zach, if the Eagles sign a quarterback tomorrow, the only imports that they will have made so far in free agency will be a quarterback, a penny, and a nickels coach.
There you go. And
Classic
maybe if they
Keith
sign
Ward.
another corner, they can play more dime. Right?
That's
right.
There you go.
Getting in on the action here, right?
Yeah.
I do want to bring one thing up to circle back to Bradberry. We didn't have it in this conversation, but we had it in an email exchange, and you brought up to me on the phone earlier. And if we're going to talk about it when we're on the phone, we might as well talk about it in front of and with our audience.
Be careful
here.
what you say there, because that's a. I don't know if you want to set that precedent.
No, I definitely don't want to set that precedent, actually. So just for this conversation here, Avonte Maddox.
Yes.
You thought that maybe that the money that they've spent at corner.
I was just asking the question.
Safety, yeah.
It's not the money that they spent at corner. It's that if they don't bring Gardner-Johnson back.
Gotcha.
Is that a solution?
Is that a solution? We've had this conversation for 4 years.
Yeah, I don't expect it, but yeah.
Yeah. My opinion, yes. They haven't been compelled to do that, but it would certainly be interesting.
These Pitt jerseys are very funny. Just a big old P on the front.
Carolina did that a few years ago.
Yeah, that is.
With a
They
P?
look like a wrestling
Well,
singlet.
no, they had the interlocking NC when it was the first time they changed their jersey.
It's just funny that it's a P.
Well, it's Pittsburgh and
I
the
know, but-
Panthers. That's their logo. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I understand. It's just
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah, Michigan had that. If you remember, I think Lavelle Blanchard was number 30 was on the team back then.
Hmm.
You can look that up.
And if you are listening and have not yet joined the Birds with
Yes.
Friends bracket, the link is in the YouTube description. I'm sure Bo or Zach will tweet it out at some point. I could tweet it out. Got a lot of people to join yesterday, so we'll have to come up with a good prize for the winner. Should be fun.
The winner will get to pick any book from Zach's bookshelf.
Not any book, but we can discuss. I'll give you a book. Yeah, some of these books you can't get anymore.
Oh.
Can you name either of the coaches right now, Mississippi State's or Pittsburgh's?
No chance.
Pittsburgh's is Jason Capel.
Well,
Jeff Capel.
Yeah,
Jeff Capel.
Jeff Capel. Yeah.
Jeff Capel. Mississippi State's is.
You're not gonna get this.
I mean, he's a coach in the SEC, so he's probably a really bad human. Just playing the odds.
Chris Jans is their coach.
Yeah, and what's the word on him as a human?
I'd never met him before. Haven't sat in his office before, so
Okay.
can't tell you that.
How do you know that, Zach?
Do you disagree with my?
I follow the coaching carousel quite a yeah. I like to connect the dots of who's going where. I mean, so
Impressive.
Okay. Anything else on the running backs we should talk about? How do you feel about the Miles Sanders era? How would you eulogize it?
Good question. A good player who I think they got what they could have hoped out of him when they took him in the second round. Not a star in Eagles lore, but had a really good fourth season, right? He had 250 plus carries this year, 1,000 plus yards, was a Pro Bowl running back, was a key player on a Super Bowl team. He was a really productive runner for them for really 3+ years. He was a productive receiver for them for 1 year, it seemed like. And yeah, I mean, the team made the playoffs twice during his time as the lead running back. I thought he was a good player. I don't think it was great. I think that he could have been better. And I think those first 3 years will kind of be looked at, I don't want to say underachieving, but that there could have been more there. But he was awesome this past year. And he deserves to be remembered fondly in Eagles history.
Yeah, you said he had 259 carries this year. He had more carries in 2022 than Rashad Penny has had in the past 4 years combined. Just to set the expectations for how available Penny's going to be. But I think we've talked about Miles Sanders. I think he was a fun guy to cover. He had some really high highs. It was an interesting. He was like a different player every year of his career, right? Like his rookie year, he was like an elite receiver for a running back.
Yes.
Just production wise, and then he completely stopped being a factor in the running game. He had the year when he was like a real home run hitter, and had a bunch of long runs. And then this year he was a much more complete running back. But I think still, and you saw it at the end of the season when he lost the playing time to Gainwell, in terms of like getting what was there for the offense, he was unreliable in that capacity. His tendency to freelance a little bit too much came back to bite him sometimes. And I think that's part of the reason why the Eagles made a conscious decision to move on from him.
Credit to you, though. I think you called this year. You called this year back in training camp where you said they were going to run him into the ground.
Yeah.
And then let him leave in free agency. I mean, 250 plus carries. You don't see that as often anymore in the NFL. They ran him into the ground, and then they clearly
and he was done by the end of the season. Like he was.
Exactly. And they were not interested in bringing him back. Like they were ready to move on. Clearly.
And it is a little bit sad because he's by all accounts he has only ever said he just wants to be in Philadelphia. Like he just wants to come back. And it's a tough business.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that it should be looked at fondly, and he wasn't great, and he could have been better. But It could have been much worse too, right? And look, he was their first 1,000-yard running back since LaShawn McCoy in 2014. Since then they've had, I mean, they've gone through a lot of backs since then. So whether it was DeMarco Murray in 15 and Ryan Matthews in 16 and 17, they had LeGarrette Blount and Corey. And then they had Jay Ajayi, got hurt in 18. 19 was Josh Adams.
Josh Adams did have a beard.
And then 20, 21, 22 was Miles Sanders.
There you go. All right, Zach. What do you think? What do you think is next in terms of priorities for the Eagles?
Well, safety, one way or the other. Whether they find a way to bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson,
some kind of resolution there. Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, that is a crowded marketplace right now.
I think if he signs elsewhere, he's probably the next domino to fall, right? And then things start to happen after that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he signs and the Eagles still haven't signed a safety by Monday or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like I've been in contact with someone who's tight with another safety on the market, and
let's call him Heffrey Hurry.
And the question that keeps coming up is like, what's going on with Gardner-Johnson? Because I do think that's holding up the rest of the market. So curious to see what they do there. I've mentioned Juan Thornhill and Nazir Adderley in previous pods as maybe lower cost options that they could look at. You also wrote about Taylor Rapp in your piece last week and among the other safeties. So there's
Nick
some
Scott,
interesting.
You've got Julian Love. You got Adrian Amos, who has the Sean Desai connection.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of guys out there.
Something to watch there.
Who are probably not going to give you quite the same level of play, but a lot of guys out there. I like Thornhill.
So do I. Yes, so do I. I think he's from Alta Vista, Virginia, which I used to drive through on my way down to Tobacco Road. The big question with this team right now is defensive tackle. And I don't know what they can do on the market. I know the guy you've talked about is Matt Ioannidis. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the last name. Can you help me here? Ioannidis.
Do you want to try to spell it? Do you want to see if you learned your lesson?
I don't have to do that. I can spell it. Not out loud. But point being,
type it in the chat.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do at defensive tackle because
that market is thinning. Mm-hmm. It's all of the middle tier of that market has really thinned out. You've got, and at this point, I think it probably makes the most sense for them to bring back Fletcher Cox. He's the best guy available. I don't know what he's asking for. But after that, it's Ioannidis and Poona Ford, who there's the, fleeting Sean Desai connection. And then it really thins out. It's like my guy, Nathan Shepard.
And by the way, I did this exercise that we were talking about going through the 2020 draft to see trade candidates. And that's a really hard position to find players at. You can see why those guys make premium money. There's simply not a lot of good interior defensive tackles in the NFL, especially guys who can affect the quarterback. So I'm fascinated to see what their answer is. You do wonder that trade that you put in the mock draft, if they can get up to 5, especially if 3 quarterbacks are going in the top 4 and Ryan Anderson's also going in the top 4 and Jalen Carter is sitting there at 5 and the Seahawks might not need him and you can entice the Seahawks, you can trade up, like that would be the answer. Now, I'm not in those conversations in the Eagles draft room with, Dom DeSandro and other people
his money on that one.
Who know what's going on with Jalen Carter. And then I also don't know if there's a price that the Seahawks would require them to hit or if the Eagles would hit that price. But to me, the best option that they have right now is to figure out how to take Jalen Carter in the draft.
But you can't rely on that.
You can't rely on that. No, 100% you can't rely on
sign
that.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but I'm just saying, like, I don't love what's out there in free agency. And I don't know what the trade market is going to bear. Howie knows that better than I do, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean they need a real guy.
Yes,
there. If you're losing both Cox and Hargrave, you need somebody substantial. Then you've got linebacker where we haven't even talked about Kaiser White. who signed today
Yeah,
with the
good for him.
Cardinals on a 2-year deal. Good for him. That leaves 2 open spots. We all presume that Nakobe Dean takes care of one of those. The linebacker market has actually also seen a lot of action. There are not a ton of guys left there, especially all the younger guys. Drew Tranquil is still available. And then you're talking about the older guys like Levante David and Bobby Wagner. There are a bunch of other like lower level guys available. I think it's either a surprise veteran signing or they wait until next week and see who's available for $2 million.
I agree with you there. I think that's a position they wait out. If I can have like a 30-second soapbox moment here, because I keep saying good for him, and I think it's worth saying. Like we talk about these so transactionally,
Yes,
and but we also get to know these guys, and like I mean, this might come off a very pro player, but I always love seeing guys get paid. Like it's so nice to see these guys sign contracts.
this is a pro player podcast.
It's like, yeah, this
Definitely.
is life changing. This is like,
We're gonna name the pro player stadium.
Sorry, my son just woke up and he's screaming for me.
Poor Reed. Nobody likes to wake up from.
I think my wife might be sleeping.
Sleep.
Can you guys talk
Yeah.
for 1 minute?
Yeah,
get
go
Reed.
check on him.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry here.
Marissa,
Bring him on.
do we have any like Michael Dunn teammates who've gotten paid who are happy for over the past couple days?
Yes. So Ethan Posick, center.
No, I am less happy for Ethan Posich
Why?
because that should have been Michael's job.
No, we are very happy for Ethan. He had an awesome year. He signed a great deal with the Browns. I think he could have even gotten more. So very happy for him. His wife is, they're having their 3rd child soon. So I know that's very exciting, 3-year deal. So very happy for the Posick family. Trying to think who else. I think there's been like talks of other things, but nothing official. So I won't reveal from other people. Zach's back. Who else? I know Michael was very impressed with Nick Gates got a good deal with the Commanders, and obviously I'm sure Eagles fans have kind of heard that his crazy story, his bad injury with the Giants a few years ago. So he was happy to see, that deal. Guards are getting paid, so it's been interesting to watch. Trying to think who else.
Vikings signing Byron Murphy.
Oh,
Minnesota, according to the
What
Emac
number?
report. No number yet.
No number. Okay.
wow. So there goes Flu World Order or Quackatology.
Quackatology, yes.
Wrong game.
Ioannidis still on the board, I think, from the Final Four, and Marcus Mariota.
Okay. Michael is watching, and I can't believe I forgot to mention friend of the pod, Sione Takitaki, also coming back in Cleveland. So
I believe he's an Osprey Award winner.
Yeah, I mean, best name, right? Like
For the interception.
It was
off
the
of
interception.
Carson.
It was like the player of the best performance by an opposing player
Yes.
in 2020.
Yes.
Carson threw it right to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like the rain and sleet. Yeah, and like there was like 5 people in the stadium.
Wow, people are saying 222 for Byron Murphy.
Wow.
I wonder if Bradberry's contract set the market there.
I don't know. I
have
not watched Byron Murphy play every snap of his career. I would rather have that deal, I think.
It's interesting.
I'd rather have the theoretically ascending player.
The 25-year-old ascending. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I'm not going to dispute that.
But there are plenty of variables. So okay, Zach, would you like to return to your soapbox?
So I was very distracted there.
How's Reed? He
doing?
okay?
He's good. He was a little scared.
Bad dream?
He's good. I think the wind and
The wind, that visit from the aliens.
it woke him up. Back to this. Yeah, no, it's nice seeing guys get paid. Like this time of year, it's and this is life changing. It's cool to see. It's more than just a tweet with a league source said, right? I mean, we see it firsthand with Marissa, and it's life changing and there's so much that goes into it, and so much work that goes into it, right? And like, I've spoken to AJ Brown, and what AJ Brown's contract is on a different scale than most of these, but like AJ, he kept saying like he won, he won. However he looks at it, he won because he changed his family's life forever. And it's nice seeing these guys get paid.
Definitely. Very cool.
Absolutely. Okay, the last position I wanted to talk about was
and real quick too, I'm sorry, on that soapbox, now that this says it, there's this
just everybody remember this, when I get called out for interrupting you, it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, that's true. I am interrupting you here. And I'm not calling out anyone directly here. I suppose I am indirectly, which is kind of a cowardly move. I don't know who I am, but there's like this supposition that Jalen Hurts should take less money to help out the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts should take as much money as he's able to get, right? Like he earned it, man. So yeah, it's not Jalen Hurts' job to hook everyone else up, right? Like
absolutely. Now maybe there's some like structuring of
100%,
right?
100%, yeah. But
any less total money, absolutely.
Yeah. These guys earn it. So
yeah.
You know what my pet peeve is of this free agency cycle so far? I mean, can we get over coaches having to bring in guys who they've coached before as
true.
if those are the only ones who could ever possibly understand Josh McDaniel's system? Like this happens every time. It's so
especially these Patriots guys,
and it's so like, are you good at your job or not?
Yeah.
Like coach the guys who are better or who are there. It's so ridiculous every time.
I am with you wholehearily.
Give me a break.
If you get a coaching job and your idea of putting a team together is like is get a bunch of guys who are part of a mediocre offense, I
mean, okay, we'll give you Zach Pascal. Okay, like that's the one you get. But like organizing your entire strategy around, we got to get Jimmy G and Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, now they did add Devontae Adams last year, but you inherited a team that made the playoffs the year before, and now you've traded away Derek Carr and Darren Waller.
Well, they're not the only ones. It's but even D'Amico is signing like Niners guys, but it's just it's so uncreative. Like,
well, there's something to be said. Like, if you want someone, Andy Reid wanted Chase. I'm sorry, not Andy Reid. Well, Andy Reid wanted Doug Peterson, but Doug Peterson wanted Chase Daniel, someone who can come and help you put in the system. That part I get. But if it's I mean, especially if it's a backup quarterback,
if it's a backup quarterback, sure.
Help put in the system. I'll work with the guys in the locker room. I get that. If you're trying to recreate a team that you had before, that's not the way to go.
Come on. What did you make of the Giants move today?
I was just gonna ask you guys that.
The Waller trade?
Yeah.
I would sooner pay Mike Gesicki and keep my 3rd round pick if I'm looking for a pass catching tight end, to be honest with you. But I like Waller more than others. I know the numbers haven't been there the past 2 years because of injury, but when he's on the field, he's a real tough matchup.
I think I said last offseason that from like a long-term Eagles fan standpoint, I would be a little bit worried that the Giants front office would have sort of a Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson type bump where you go from total inanity to just like baseline competence, and that would be a huge jump. This offseason has taught me that the Eagles fans have nothing to worry about.
Well, what surprised me about this offseason in particular was that if you think to Sean McDermott's first year in Buffalo, which was Joe Shane there that year, or did he come the year after that? Anyways, they made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, right? It was a nice story, but then they were like, we're not good enough, and they kind of backed up and they almost reset. And I remember it being a controversial thing to do at the time, but they're like, we're not going to go far with Tyrod as the quarterback, right? And I kind of thought, but I thought the Giants would do that. I thought the Giants would have clearer eyes about what happened last year. They're a well-coached team that played decently, but I didn't look at that team and say this is the beginning of something, right? I would have.
And they gave a ton of money to Bobby Okereke. Like,
He's young, but
I think the bump they got was Joe Judge to Brian Dable. I don't think Joe Shane is doing anything different than Gettleman was doing. I think they're going to win 6 games next year.
Well, Shane did a good job as his first year in terms of like resetting. I think
he did a great job releasing James Bradberry. He really nailed that.
Oh, I bet he didn't nail. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think they're in trouble. I was going to say just before we get off the last thing that I expect news maybe tomorrow or relatively soon. I think the Eagles will prioritize the backup quarterback at some point. We've heard rumors of Jacoby Brissett. We know that Sirianni loves him. We've talked about the Mariota connection. Gardner Minshew has now had a chance to assess what his market is. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. Your boy got released today. If the Eagles really want to make us happy and bring in Matt Ryan. So there are a lot of guys available, and there are plenty more guys available who are competent, but I think the Eagles will have some kind of preference there. We'll see what kind of number they're willing to give out.
I mean, backup quarterback, it would surprise me if it's Ian Book next year, as we discussed.
All right.
I see Alex C points out Jacoby knows the system. But Jacoby Brissett, he's like the best backup quarterback available on the market right now. So that wouldn't be.
He was very good last year.
Actually, what
Marissa knows.
Yeah, and great guy. Michael loved spending time with Jacoby. So I hope he gets paid. I hope he goes somewhere. If he goes to the Eagles, I hope they pay him what he deserves.
I hope that he's holding up the Eagles like Aaron Rodgers is holding up the Jets, and he has a list for the Eagles, and he says, "You better bring in Michael F. and Dunn."
Yes, that would be wonderful. I'd love that.
Well, the cool thing about him, I don't know if this is still the case, but it was at one point, is that he represents himself. I believe so. So he gets to keep that commission, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't know
hopefully
that.
he does a good job negotiating.
Here's another pet peeve I have that reminds me. There are all of the national media people like castigating Lamar Jackson for this is the situation he's in because he doesn't have an agent. He could have taken the deal, 2 years ago and still hit the market at the same time. It's so naked. Like they're just protecting the agents. It's like they're just shills for the big agent business. We'll see what Lamar Jackson ends up doing. We don't know what his contract's going to be like yet. We don't need like telling him what he's doing wrong. We're going to find out.
Yeah, it's hard for me to weigh in on that for this reason. Because
the reason to have an agent is to play the media game.
Well, that's not true. I disagree with you there. The reason to have an agent is because in theory he knows how to extract. He's a good negotiator.
But when you are a player at that level, like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I always
what you are
in
getting
the NBA,
from the agent is like so much of what you're getting is at that level, like the relationships with the national media people.
I disagree. It's exercising leverage and knowing how to deal with multiple teams out at once, having the relationships in front offices, not necessarily just media. I see what you're saying. I think what you're saying is more validity in the NBA, to be frank, or when there's max contracts. Like if you're a max player in the NBA and this is the most you can get, right? Then you can figure that out, right? But in the NFL, there's a lot of nuance there. Now, if you're a star quarterback and you can name your price, maybe that's a different story. But like we can see here, it's not as simple as naming his price because there are complications here. I don't know enough in Lamar Jackson's situation to know if an agent would have created a different outcome or not. But I also think it's naive to say that this situation wouldn't have been here if not for the agent, because I think one thing that kind of gets lost in this is the agent works for the player. The player doesn't work for the agent, right? So the agent should be operating at the behest of the player. If this is what Lamar Jackson wants, then the agent should be negotiating on behalf of that, not Lamar Jackson sitting on his hands saying, I'm going to get what the agent gets me, right?
I just think you could probably write a nice like college paper or thesis if you really wanted to dig into it on contrasting the national football media narrative around Deshaun Watson last year and around Lamar Jackson this year, and just to see how the sausage is made. The tofu, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the franchise tag. Like I see the chat here. I don't think owners are colluding against Lamar Jackson. I stand by what I said last night, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think there's an understanding in the league that the Ravens are going to match any offer, and they don't want to have their books tied up for 5 days with a contract that the Ravens are going to match. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I just think it would seem odd for me to think that
I'm not talking about like Lamar Jackson not having signed an offer sheet yet. I'm just talking about like this narrative that like he has misplayed his hand and like shame on him for not having an agent. That
he hasn't played his hand yet. That's the thing. So I disagree with that narrative.
Okay. All right. 2 days in a row, no Eagles news broke on the pod. Slightly disappointing. That's all right. We gotta get out of here so Marissa can go finish enjoying her birthday.
Enjoy your birthday. Watch
I'm enjoying this.
Gotta have some pie.
I can't eat anymore. I got my sugar test in the morning, so
Ooh.
I can't have any more sugar before I have to take that. So
All right.
Well, good luck.
Thanks.
I don't know what a sugar.
Hope I pass.
The glucose.
Glucose.
Oh, okay.
Pregnancy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They make you drink the nasty sugary drink, and then they.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's hope I pass.
Yeah. Good luck.
Probably not great planning to do birthday cake the night before. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Baby's gonna be in good shape.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. For the birthday girl and Zach and Michael and Jason Capel, we thank you for listening. We will
Jeff Capel, Jason's his brother, who's actually I think an assistant on that staff, but Jeff Capel.
Well, no, I was talking about Jason.
Okay. I thought you were talking about Pitt's head coach. Okay.
Yeah, I said who I meant.
Okay.
For all of them, I mean, you of all people should appreciate a brother.
Mm-hmm.
Plural.
Yes. Okay. For all of those people, and for Jim Capel, we thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow if there is news, and otherwise, we'll talk to you later. As always, we love you.